Fireside Chat is going to be centered around supporting women in STEM, the power of the male ally. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you all to our next speaker. Please join me as I welcome to the stage Vishal Pratapwant, Chief Operating Officer and Senior Vice President, Global Services, Fiserv. Let's welcome sir with a huge round of applause. Welcome sir, thank you for joining us. And to moderate the session, please put your hands together for Jessie Paul, Founder and CEO, Paul Writer. Come on ladies and gentlemen, I know it's just before lunch, but we can make a louder round of applause and warm welcome.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. And we are very conscious of the time. And we'll try to make it worth your while, right? Can't fill your stomach, but we will fill your mind. We hope so, at least. So the topic is a male ally. And just casually, I was telling someone I'm going to talk about this today. And first question is, what is that? I've not heard of male ally. I've heard of male mentor. But what is this new ally thing? And to be honest, it's a relatively new concept for me as well. And so the first question I'm going to ask Vishal, who has very bravely stepped onto this forum, is define for the audience what a male ally looks like, apart from yourself.
Not audible? Okay. Look, if you're asking me what does it looks like this. All right? This is it. And all right? So thank you. But I'm sure that was a loaded question. You're saying what characteristics is
what does a male ally do?
So it's like I can break it down into one simple line, but it has three characteristics. I'll come to you. Male ally is the one who's thinking about gender equality when there are no women in the room, and is doing the right thing there, right? Now, if we were to break this down, there are three really elements of this, right? One is the understands that there's some inherent bias in the system, not some, there is inherent bias in the system, right? Completely believes in gender equality. And the third element of this is can be an advocate for getting the equality back into the system as and when they are in a place of work or outside too. And, especially if they're in a position of power, are using the influence to be doing the right thing, which is really, really important, right? So think about this as the person who has there are a lot of technologies, like a background process always running, who's thinking, what does it mean from people from different genders, right? And thinking about how do we make this a place which provides them equal amount of experience.
I love that. And you've actually answered my question of why does it have to be a male ally and not just female allies. I think the really important point you made is that they're thinking of women even when there are no women in the room. And it is true because in many situations, even the best of companies have maybe 30% women and even less in decision making. So we need more men actually to speak out because they are the people who are available at the moment. So I think that's great. But how did you become a male ally? I mean, was there a particular trigger? What's your journey been?
Right. So you see, actually, I've thought about that question, and answer is this comes from a place of being actively and making some conscious decisions, right? There wasn't a particular trigger that said, now I need to become one, right? Look, we all come from different upbringings, different backgrounds, different practices at home, right? And I think it's also, some of us are fortunate where these things didn't exist as they were growing up, right? But you come to workplace and you see that there are events happening. There are situations which are to a disadvantage to a certain segment of the employees, right? And then that's where you need to be extremely. It needs to be part of your conscious to say, there is bias now, right? And if I can't be the advocate, I will get somebody who could advocate for equality, for equity, just not equality, in the system, and work against any kind of gender bias we have, right? So it's more coming from them, and at some point, it just becomes a part of who you are, right? When you live it every day, when you think about all this aspect on an everyday situation, everyday action, right? It just becomes you. It just becomes a part of you, and the way you think, and fundamentally your thinking or the brain is wired to think changes.
Before I go to my next question, I just want a show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the male ally concept before, Vishal told us about it? Okay, great. Keep your hands up. No, keep your hands up. Now keep your hand up if you know how to find one in your organization. Great. So that's my next question to Vishal, which is, I know Fiserv has a lot of great programs for women's representation in the workplace, but two questions. One, how, as a woman, do I find my male ally? And secondly, is the male ally something that's an individual choice, or do they become part of a program? I mean, how are these male allies born, and how do I find one?
Sure. And I'll answer both. My starting point is going to be slightly different, right? I'll start with what Fiserv happens to be, what programs we have, and then really answer the crux of the question is, how do you find a male ally, right? Because the one will lead into another. So look, male allyship, as we have defined, is completely a choice, right? It comes from a place where you believe that you can do good. Look, at the end of the day, all humans, I would want to be doing good, feeling good about how they have gone about their day, and making a difference, right? I'm sure all of us would want to do a difference, make a difference in what we do, right? So, and in Fiserv, it is no different. There are multiple platforms that Fiserv provides to bring in gender equality, and in additionally help women in the workplace, right? It starts with our ERG, which is the women's network. It's called the WIN ERG, right? And male allies are encouraged, saying that there are opportunities for you to contribute to this network, and it's not something that gets marketed, sold, or even positioned, right? It is something that people put their hand up, and we have about close to 150, 200 male allies today, which is not bad, considering that nobody's forced them into it. So there is that. Then I think there is a culture part to all this, right? It is the whole situation today will not fundamentally change unless we change the culture itself, right? So, and that is branded as Forward Together. It's a culture which promotes gender equality, promotes equity in the system, and makes sure that people understand that there are biases in the system, and help them also overtake those, right? So this whole Forward Together program is something that is now become a living organism in the organization, right? So that's the first part of these programs I want to talk about. Then our entire approach has been as holistic development, right? Right from how you hire, how do you mentor, train them, right, and help them provide opportunities as they go forward. So there is we try and make, while we don't have any quota systems, none of us do, I assume, right? We encourage a lot of diversity-based hiring. Diversity not just being gender, right? There are other forms of diversity too, right? So that is encouraged right at the recruitment program. We have a program for returning women, right? The returning women program not only identifies people who have taken a break, the break could be for multiple reasons, but as they have a different onboarding program, a different mentorship program, and they continue to. There comes a point where they become part of the mainstream, but it is actually providing a soft landing pad for them to come back, right? Because there are a lot of apprehensions about coming back to work. And then there is the leading Fiserv one, right? If I were to talk about the third element, which is leading, where this is a program which I find it to be unique. I mean, I've worked enough in the industry, but I find it to be unique because this is the one where the CEO, the directs of the CEO who are running billion-dollar businesses, take the time out and come and participate in this program, share their knowledge, right? It's more by they're doing things along with like projects or being advisors and such for projects initiatives that go into this program, which is more about learning by doing things, right? So that's what Fiserv ecosystem around all this is. Now, how do you identify a ally? Look for somebody who understands the ideas of bias, whom you have seen like equality in the behavior, how they behave in work at everyday basis. These are the ones who are vocally contributing to the women's network within or leading it. We have executive sponsors for this program, so there is starting right from that level. Look for people who you think would speak for the gender when you're not in the room. I'm going back to the first place. Who you believe would represent you the right way, right? And that comes by a few interactions with those people, either in a public forum or in a one-on-one. Meet them over lunch, talk to them, get their ideas, and identify whether they're right people to be your male ally, and it could also move into they being your mentors.
That's a great description. And, when I was in the corporate world, I always used to think that when you're on the board, these problems go away. And it was kind of a revelation to me that they don't. So I'm on 4 different boards, and on one of them, in 2 of them, I've had some friction with like the admin or the logistics piece. And typically as a woman, you tend to say, one must adjust and manage, why create a fuss? So I mentioned it to another board member, but he took it up very strongly and said, this has never happened to me. Why is it only happening to you? And he took it up strongly, and then I realized that, you should be speaking up, but I wouldn't have done it without his prodding. And now I realize that's what, the male allyship looks like. So for me, what you said has given me a framework to understand the kind of people who step up and do that. So I'm going to ask you one last question and then open up 4 questions here, which is, what are your thoughts on how more men can, step up to be male allies? What can women do to encourage them?
I think it's just not women. It's on men also to go and say there's a lot of mystery around what is a male ally, just not to this group, but otherwise too, right? So it's on to the men too, to talk about what they do, how do they influence things, how are they contributing to a very beneficial cause for the organization, the country, and the world as a whole, right? So I think it's word of mouth, a lot of word of mouth about what you do. And similarly, if you find a good male ally, you can talk to other people in your team what your experience has been, right? Nothing talks more loudly than the personal experience that you would have gone in with having mentorship or a conversation or whatever structure you want to put in place with the male ally, right? So talk about it actively. It's also on to educate men about what is a male ally, right? Like our women's network does a great, just like the question you asked, what is a male ally? What is in it for them to be a male ally, right? There's so many things I've learned today, which I wouldn't have otherwise known, not being a male ally to a women network, right? Like I said, your brain in some ways gets rewired. Everybody in the panel before talked about conscious bias in AI. Trust me, there is rewiring in humans too when you start interacting and get all these diverse thoughts from different segments. So it's a win-win proposition. We just need to talk about it more, make it more front and center, and and talk about how it benefits both sides.
Thank you. And any questions? I think we have like 1 minute for a question. Yes. If a mic can be.
So I have this question that it's always in my head. I have not been able to find an answer, and I would love your thoughts on it. Firstly, is a male ally something really rare to find? And then, if it is very rare, I don't know what the numbers are, how can we create an environment or infrastructure to have many more male allies? Because I think as a woman, there has to be, like, I would need a male ally. Every other woman here in the room would need a male ally. So how do we create that 1:1 ratio?
Most of us have been on safaris. It's easier to spot a male ally than any animal on the safaris. Trust me about it. Okay. So it is, in some companies, there's structured programs around this, right? Around somebody being a male ally. But informally too, people who have the right characteristics could be a male ally, right? What is the characteristics? The characteristics are somebody who understands bias, somebody who's thinking inclusion, somebody you believe from where you are is in a place to influence things, right? Also in the nature of work that you're involved with, right? Either you might want to get a diverse thought or an aligned thought. So somebody who is within your field or outside, depending on what your situation is. And it's in some ways it's no different than finding a mentor. And there is not just one. I have 3 mentors for 3 different things, right? So you could, but the base characteristics of what a male ally looks like, one thing, they will have hair, okay, much more than I do, all right? So don't worry about it. But how do you identify a male ally? The basic characteristics are not going to change, right? So you need to have the belief that they are going to talk for the gender, talk for you when you're not in the room, right? And can be helpful in your journey as you take it forward.
Thank you so much, Vishal. And with that, we're at the end of our session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.